Hey, Sterile Processing Universe, it's Hank Balch here. And we're going to look at what the new Pennsylvania Sterile Processing Bill really says and what it doesn't. All right, so this is House Bill number 81. And at the beginning here, it talks about the table of contents, goes through a couple of definitions, and we're going to scroll through those chapters here in a moment. All right, nothing too interesting here, defining some terms. It also defines surgical technology, and I'll explain more about that here in a moment and why it does so. All right, so Chapter 3 is where we really get to sterile processing and the part about certification. And it says, an individual shall not function as a central service technician in a healthcare facility, facility shall not employ or otherwise contract for the services of a central service technician unless the individual has successfully passed the national accredited central service exam for sterile processing technicians and holds and maintains one of the following credentials: the CRCST through ISHM, or the CSPDT credential through CBSPD. Now, this is an important exemption. The certification requirement under subsection A shall not apply to an individual who has been employed or otherwise contracted for services as a central service technician in a hospital or ambulatory surgery center on or before the effective date of this act. So what this means is if you already work in the state of Pennsylvania as a sterile processing technician and you're not certified, you do not have to get certified under this bill. You are exempt. New employees who do not meet the requirement under Section 301 shall have 18 months from the date of hire to comply. So this means if you are hired without a certification, you do not need a certification to get hired, you will have 18 months from the date that you are hired to get your certification. Again, you do not have to be certified prior to getting a job in sterile processing under the Pennsylvania law unless your hospital requires it, but the bill does not require it. On line 15, we see continuing education. An individual who qualifies to function as a central service technician under subsection 301 shall annually complete 10 hours of continuing education to remain qualified as a central service technician. Now, this is an interesting section here because if you do have your CRCST, for instance, you are required to have at least 12 hours of continuing education. So by the rules of the certification itself, you have to have more CEs than 10 hours. But this does apply for those of you who may be certified through CBSPD because you're not actually required to report annual hours, but only each time you recertify every 5 years. All right. On line 22, we see the facility responsibility. They shall maintain documentation to verify that individuals have met their certification requirements under Section 301A. And if an individual does not meet the certification requirements, the facility shall maintain documentation of a technician's date of employment or contract period when the central service technician provided services to the hospital to verify that they meet the exemptions listed under 301B. And that's what we mentioned before. we've already been employed prior to the enactment of this law. And then we hear to have a couple of exceptions for those who do not have to abide by this law. Importantly, students or interns that are operating under direct supervision of a healthcare practitioner, or a person who holds or maintains a registration, certification, or license by a nationally accredited credentialing organization to perform health services. Okay. These remaining chapters here are not applicable to sterile processing. They're speaking directly to surgical technologists. Yeah. And then chapter 21 here at the bottom, the effective date. This act shall take effect in 60 days from the time the bill has been passed. All right. Thank you for listening to the update on the new Pennsylvania Sterile Processing Bill. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at hank@beyondclean.net. Until next time, keep fighting dirty.